PowerBoat Television is brought to you by Yamaha. Conquer water with Yamaha. Ford F-Series. Smart, tough, capable. And BoatBuys.com. Over 60,000 new and used boats for sale.
If you're a boater in Ontario, you know how short the season can be. Unless you're brave enough to break some ice, boating usually starts late April and runs into late October. To get the most out of our favorite 6 months, we have to find ways to enjoy the chilly shoulder seasons.
So it's the middle of October. We've dropped into Lake Muskoka, the north end of it, near Port Carling. We're going to go for a father and son kind of fall colors tour. Yamaha's graciously lent us a beautiful little 212X to go for a spin in. So what do you think?
Great day to be out on the water for sure, but it's even better to be out in the water with my son. So I know it's going to be a great day. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The colors are spectacular.
My father is a pretty cool guy, a true adventurer. Not only is he impervious to cold weather, but he introduced me to boating many, many years ago. We'd talked about a fall colors tour on Lake Muskoka for years, and I couldn't wait to help make it a reality.
The Muskoka region is absolutely incredible for boating. Lake Joe, Lake Rosso, and Lake Muskoka are just such beautiful destinations. Not only are there hundreds of miles of shoreline to explore, but there's plenty of places to go shopping and restaurants to have a bite to eat. But the shoulder seasons in Ontario can get cold pretty quickly. Last week, we were surfing behind this boat and it was 25 degrees. This morning, it was -4 and we had a centimeter of snow on the truck and the boat. But we're not going to let that stop us from going for a fall colors tour. One of the great things about these Yamaha sport boats is there's hardly any winterization to do. So if you're planning a fall colors tour in the shoulder season, you don't have to worry about pulling the boat out and having an icing issue or a de-winterization issue. You can pull it out, blow the water out of it. That's a pretty big advantage if you're going to use it during the fall season.
Centrally located between Lake Muskoka and Lake Rosso, Port Carling is known as the hub of the lakes. While boat traffic is light mid-October, it is so busy in the summer that there are 2 separate locks between the lakes. Owned and operated by the District Municipality of Muskoka, these locks originally opened in 1871 to allow steamship travel from the village of Rosso to Gravenhurst. Today, they are operational from mid-May until the end of November. The big lock is operated by full-time staff and runs from 8 or 9 a.m. to as late as 9 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays in the summertime. The smaller lock is open 24 hours and is self-serve. There is some supervision in the summer, but for the most part, you operate it yourself. As a family, we've been through various locks many times, but this was the first time my father got to operate one.
Step 1, push green button. Step 2, handle in center position. Step 3, push handle down for forward towards open gate.
As we exited the lock with our newly minted lockmaster aboard, there was some debate as to whether we should head to Gravenhurst or Bala. We knew the Cranberry Festival was on, but also heard the Seguin and Winona 2 were still running. Since our red-hot 212X was quick and comfy, we decided to visit both. Yamaha sport boats are perfectly suited to exploring. Jet drives allow for shallow water operation. The big windshield keeps the wind off, and a 50-mile-per-hour top speed lets you cover a lot of water quickly if you need to. With the sun poking out, though, we were in no hurry at all.
And one thing I just can't get over driving this 21-foot 212X is just how well the hull handles the waves. I've driven a lot of 21-foot boats, but honestly, this is impressive, especially considering it's jet-powered. Yamaha didn't build a flat-bottom boat here. This boat is more than capable of a decent-sized chop. And something when you're cruising with these Yamahas is the cruise and no weight control. It's simply a push of a button once you're on plane to control your speed with 8 different settings up and 5 different settings down. So really, when you're driving around looking at the fall colors, you're not worried about your throttles. You just kind of set a speed and forget about it. You want to go a little faster? Push a button. You want to go a little slower? Push a button. And I can't tell you how much that makes driving this boat just such a pleasure.
Considered by many to be the gateway to the Muskokas, Gravenhurst is less than 20 miles south of Port Carling by water and only 2 hours north of Toronto by car. It is a fantastic destination even if you don't have a boat. The boardwalks are perfect to stroll around on, and we find families of all ages enjoying the waterfront. There are a few great restaurants down by the water, and the scenery is truly spectacular this time of year. Gravenhurst is also home to the oldest coal-fired steamship still in operation today. Originally built in 1887, the 125-foot-long Seguin is joined by her more modern sister ship, Winona II. Together, they provide unforgettable tours on Lake Muskoka.
It's just amazing. It's the middle of October. We've got incredible colors. We have an incredible series of lakes to drive on. I can't think of a better way to spend an afternoon.
While there are a number of great places to grab a bite to eat in Gravenhurst, it was still early, and we wanted to get back out on the water. Since Bala was only 20 miles away by water and there was a festival going on, we decided to head there for lunch.
This week's project may not be number 1 on your list, but it should be at least number 2. Because this week, we're doing work on the head.
Namely, we're going to replace the seal, which in this case is no longer sealing, and essentially just constantly flushing. It's pretty straightforward. You'll need the new seal, of course, some basic tools, and gloves are always nice for these jobs, as is a can-do attitude. After turning off the vacuum flush breaker and fresh water pump, you can remove the base cover and the pedal cover. A single clamp secures the bowl down, but before you lift it right off, you'll have to remove the water hose at the back. The old seal will likely be stuck to the bottom of the bowl, so just peel it off.
All right, so we got everything apart, fairly straightforward, a little awkward to reach. But before we go ahead and put the new seals on, now is a good time to give a quick clean, and not just to the sections like here where we can't normally access, but even the sections that are hard to reach normally. It's a perfect excuse. Hey, next person at a boat show that comes up and says, "You guys have such a glamorous job," I'm gonna ask if you've seen this piece. In there, we got the 2 pieces. The one, hopefully you can read, says this side up. This is not just for decoration, believe it or not. That goes this side up, and this little notch goes around here, like that. And then this one goes on top. Look at that seal, nice, tight seal all the way around. So now we gotta put everything back together. The notch and the bowl lined up. Nice and tight. All we gotta do, put the pedal back on, take her for a spin. So there you have it, the water is staying in the bowl, which means the seal is doing its job. There's no water leaking anywhere, which means we did our job and hooked everything back up properly, and of course, it's nice and clean under there. Now, waiting until the seal fails is not the best idea because, in this case, we were at the dock, but if we were out on vacation, that can ruin your time. So a little preventative maintenance, low-cost parts, less than an hour's work, good to go. Other than a couple things on the helm that are a little bit dated, you wouldn't know that this is more than a decade old. In 1969, Paul and Carol Cuck founded Regal Boats. Now they're still based in Florida, and even though the founders are gone, their 3 kids are still guiding the company. And you see a lot of them on the used market, and that's probably because they're well built. Just like this one. This is a 2006 Regal 3650. Other than a couple things on the helm that are a little bit dated, you wouldn't know that this is more than a decade old.
A great feature on Regals is their engine accessibility. The opening at the rear means more room and light for maintenance access. Also in here, you'll find the 6.5 kilowatt Kohler generator. The large swim platform has pop-up cleats and mounts for a davit system. And when the hatch is closed, there's a good-sized transom locker for your gear. And a separate hatch for your shore power and water access. The cockpit has a wraparound bench on the port side, and behind the double helm seat is the refreshment center. Here you'll find 120-volt outlets just above a large fold-out waste bin. Just forward is a good-sized fridge with ice maker. And further forward still, a large storage compartment. Within the Corian countertop is a sink and removable panel for a drained compartment, perfect to fill with ice and drinks. Looking around, it's hard to believe this is a 2006 given the shape of the upholstery, including on the bolstered and adjustable helm seat. But the age of the boat is evident at the helm itself with the older equipment. But it all still works great, and like the rest of the boat, is spotless. The companionway to the salon is just off-center, leading you down to the cherry and holly flooring, and a large wood table along the starboard side couch. A table that folds out, no less. From there, you have a great view of the flat-screen TV that's been recently added. The galley features Corian countertops, stainless sink with 2-burner stovetop, a mid-sized fridge, and lots of storage for essentials. And more storage is found in the floor. So like on a lot of express cruisers, you got a lot of room down here in the salon. But what you don't see on a lot of express cruisers is that. This is awesome. The electrical panel is well laid out and easy to access. And the head is roomy with a separate shower compartment. The bow stateroom features a near queen-size berth, single chair, and hanging lockers. The midship cabin area is more seating, but it can convert into a queen-size berth. Here too, you'll find the central vacuum. The 2006 Regal 3560 is much larger than you'd expect, and likely why they changed the name to 3760 in 2007. When you hit the throttle, you're hit with another pleasant surprise. This runs like a small sport boat. Cruising anywhere from 25 to 35 miles per hour was smooth and pleasant. A peppy run for a boat that's length overall is 38 feet and weighs more than 15,000 pounds. The top speed we hit on our test day was 47.4 miles per hour. That'll get you from A to B in a real hurry. When it comes to handling, to call this nimble is an understatement. It banks sharply into turns, and while it was a smooth day on the water for us, cutting across our camera boat's wake was barely noticeable on board, thanks to the 19-degree dead rise. It's a 2006, so you'll have to forego some luxuries you'd expect on a 2018 or 19 model, like having the ability to electronically sync the engines and drive with a single throttle. It can be a bit of a learning curve if you're not used to how responsive this boat is with twin stern drives, especially if instead you're used to a slower-running, inboard-driven cruiser. It can be a big change. But the more time you spend driving it, the more fun it is, so any complaints you might have are washed off by the perma-smile that'll be on your face. Pushing this Regal to those fun heights are twin 8.1-liter Volvo Penta GIs at 375 horsepower apiece. It's incredible and unique to have the mix of performance and comfort without having to make massive sacrifices to achieve both. And boats like this can be found on the used market, but if you are looking for one, be ready to act because they don't last long.
We're back with Jerry Sims, Merc Cruiser instructor. How often do you recommend having a drive pulled off and inspected?
Yearly.
We're back with Jerry Sims, Merc Cruiser instructor at Mercury Marine Canada. And we talked earlier a bit about oil change and other maintenance items. We also now want to talk about the drive on a stern drive and the maintenance involved there. Now, friends of mine quite often don't bother pulling their drive, and I think they're crazy because it's a simple service thing you can do. We don't really recommend you do it yourself. How often do you recommend having a drive pulled off and inspected?
Yearly.
Annually.
This drive has an input shaft made out of steel, and it goes into a coupler on the engine that's generally made out of aluminum. It's a spline fit. One is an internal spline, one's an external spline, and they need to be lubricated. So we have to take that off in order to lubricate them. That spline goes into what's called a coupler, and that coupler is attached to the engine, and it has to be lined up perfectly.
We're also going to take a look at some seals in there.
What you're going to get is a seal kit between the drive and the bell housing here. So that'll include 3 O-rings that go over the shaft. You'll get those, and you'll get 2 O-rings, one for the shift cavity and one for the water passage.
How often do you do that seal kit?
Every time you take this off, you put those seals on.
Okay.
Before pulling the drive off, it's best to remove both trim cylinders completely. If you only unbolt one end, you risk scratching the drive, setting it up for corrosion down the road.
And I should be able to, if I'm lucky and everything's lined up, this should just pull right off.
Just be careful that you unhook the shifter cable before pulling the drive. Inspecting a drive is as important as servicing or replacing seals. You really want to know if water is getting in, and the best way to check is to look right down the bellows. Water rarely gets past the drive seal, but bellows are a wear item. You can perform a visual check of the bottom side of the bellows with the drive on, but in Jerry's experience, they more often fail along the sides. Don't forget, failed bellows can sink the boat.
It's like an accordion.
Yeah.
So if you open and close it enough times, the creases eventually will crack and they'll get old and they'll fail. Either one of these bellows can sink the boat. It's about every 5 years that you should take that off and put new bellows on it, new hose. It's about a 5-year program.
And looking at the accordion shape, it's one of the reasons you don't store a boat with the drive up. The upper part's compressed and the bottom part's extended. Better to leave the drive down so that bellows in a more neutral position.
Exactly right.
We also check the gimbal bearing and inner shaft splines for excessive wear. Before reinstalling the drive, the coupler holding the gimbal bearing should be checked for proper alignment with an alignment tool. This ensures the drive shaft will properly line up with the bearing and engine once the drive is back on.
You tried. So that's a perfect alignment.
It should go in that easily.
That easily.
If it doesn't, it's not aligned.
It's not aligned.
You might think once aligned, nothing should change. But as a boat ages, many things can happen to cause misalignment.
You know, if you don't have it checked often enough, what'll end up happening is you'll have a coupler failure, and a coupler is about $1,000, and then you have to take the engine out, actually, to put the coupler in. So if you check it every year annually, you can adjust it every year if you need be,
Right.
and you'll always be in good shape. Now I'm gonna, lubricate the shaft here to make sure I have the correct grease on it, and we're gonna put the drive back on.
But again, a little bit much for the DIYer, I think. This is definitely something that probably the dealer should do.
We're just trying to show you why it's important.
Just having that dolly is pretty important. I wouldn't want to put my drive, I want some gravel in the driveway there, put a blanket down and lay it.
It's pretty heavy, and it's cumbersome, it's a bigger drive.
Changing the drive lube is also an important annual service, which we've covered before. Just make sure you orient the drive so that the drain plug is at the lowest point. Not all drives have the same location for the drain bolt. Considering the value of a drive and the amount of effort it takes for a proper service, this is something you may want to have your authorized dealer or marina do for you. After all, this is the kind of routine maintenance they perform all the time.
We're just trying to address, why would you take it to a dealer? The dealer's not trying to take your money. He's really trying to do you a favor.
Up next, we check out the Bala Cranberry Festival, chat with the mayor of Muskoka, and go for a toboggan ride.
Most of my friends have already taken their boat out of the water for the season. In fact, our big cruisers are already on the ground, basically winterized and about to be shrink wrapped. And that's one of the problems with a big cruiser is you tend to miss out on some of these shoulder seasons because the winterization just takes so long. But with a boat like this, you can have it in and out of the water really quickly and take it places on a trailer that you wouldn't normally take a large boat. Lake Muskoka, Lake Rosso, Lake Joe are perfect examples, and we are really spoiled to have them right in our backyard. So if you've got a smaller boat and you can put it on a trailer and you're looking at the temperature in October, don't worry, it is absolutely beautiful to come up here.
Expectations are a funny thing. It wasn't much more than 12 degrees out, and I expected we might get a bit chilled.
For most people, this time of year they might think it's going to be too cold to go out in a boat. But you got a good windshield. You can block the wind blowing through. But the key is to dress for it. We've got good gear. We're wearing our life jackets, that's for sure. Put on a winter jacket. Make sure you got a toque. You can even put on gloves if it gets that cold. But it hasn't been today. It's actually beautiful.
I mean, if we can snowmobile at minus 30, plus 12 should feel balmy. No question we were enjoying ourselves. And in less than an hour, we'd arrived in Bala. The Bala Cranberry Festival has been going on for 34 years. and it's a big deal. It's estimated that over 500,000 people have visited the 3-day festival since it started in 1984. In fact, the Bala Cranberry Festival is one of Festivals and Events Ontario top 100 events. The $10 admission is good for all 3 days, with proceeds supporting local scholarships, community groups, and nonprofit associations. Spread out across town, there is a ton of great food, live music, arts and crafts, and a few strange animals. And cranberries. Lots and lots of cranberries. There are hot cranberries, chocolate cranberries, cranberry muffins, cranberry sauce, and of course, big bags of fresh cranberries. We may have dropped in by boat, but town shuttles run continuously with multiple stops throughout the festival. But if that's too down to earth for you, float plane tours can be arranged. With our bellies full, it was time to leave Bala and head back to Port Carling. I had a little surprise in store for my father, and I needed a little help to pull it off. As I mentioned earlier, my father is a bit of an adventurer. Perhaps his latest passion is the best example. When he turned 60, he took up kiteboarding. And I remember him telling me he saw a video on YouTube